Hi, good afternoon. My name is John Dean of Dean's Marine Services, or Dean's Tugs, depending which hat I wear. Been in the marine industry all my life, from 2-year-old on the river. Done quite a lot of things, but at the moment we're here to talk about the river hull bridges. There's only me what keeps the bridges working at the minute, obviously, because there's no river traffic. I think the sin tank comes from Beverley every blue moon, which obviously gives Stone Ferry and Ennerdale Sutton bridges a dust off, which the bridgemen are glad to actually swing the bridge to get some out of servicing them. Now there's less bridgemen, there's a better service, believe it or not. As I've just said, it's basically it's just a shame that there's just no traffic, which hopefully will change at some time. One of the big jobs we had a few years ago was the Stone Ferry new bridges, which replaced the old swing bridge, and we took these up on flat top barges with 2 tugs run at each end, push pull, which was an interesting job with a flat top barge going around some of the very tight corners. But as I said, another day at the office. It was more or less a success, with not too many obstacles, considering the river was quite busy in them days. At the time, we never owned the Gillian Knight, which was one of the tugs, and Jack, which was the skipper of that, was the old school. And in my early days, I learnt a lot of how to tow things from him, which was good. We learnt him something because he's never really pushed on a barge before. He's always towed things, so we both learnt things off each other, which was at the time was very good. Going back from Jack's day, he once towed me out the old harbour with a barge which wouldn't have its engine going. It was getting towed away by sea. He towed me out off the side of the barge, which I said to him, well, you'll never do that. And he tows out, followed him straight out the harbour, and no problem going through any of the bridges, which was a very surprise to me. But that just proved his salt was very good. For the Arctic Corsair, there's still lots to do. Trial runs, dredging, and then there's a new lock gate putting on. So not a lot. So yeah, so obviously that'll keep the bridges moving. We're going to make a couple of boats the same size as the Corsair and put some scaffold poles over the side of these boats to give it the draft, to see how much dredging is going to have to be done for the Corsair to come in. As most people will see, that because the river's not getting used at all really now, that the mud has colossally got big. There's hardly a drain hole in the middle of the river. This Corsair still draws 16 foot at its deepest draft. So hopefully, I think there's 2 trials to do, and then they decide on what the dredging is going to be. Another time about going through a Drivewell Bridge off our little wet boat, the Jet ex-mooring boat from Saltend, was going out to meet a barge to assist him up the harbour, and they'd opened the bridge, so we started coming through, and before we actually got under the bridge, there was actually dropping it. I think he got a bit excited with his buttons, and we obviously shouting with the bridge coming down to the bridge guy, we ain't got through yet. So it was a bit, well, there was more of a worry on the face of the bridgeman than mine, like, because we could only go down, can't we? In the old days, like when you used to come through a harbour with the bridges, before a lot of barges had radio, you had to blow your own, and if they didn't come out, you'd go and knock on the door. You'd tie your barge up on the quayside. They'd usually tell you that it was coffee time, so you'd have to wait. But as we come into the future now, the lads are on a VHF, so before the harbour master retired, who was the head bridge guy in his day, the bridges was best they've ever worked, because you could actually talk to them face to face. So, you know, prior to getting to the bridge, they could tell you we're having a cup of tea and you're not going to get a swing, or else there was always on the ball. When Pete Bailey, which was the head bridge master, moved up to harbour master, he knew the bridges working and obviously knew his crews very well. And after that day was, done, when he took over as the harbour master, the bridges was well, as good as they've ever been for opening quickly in the last 30 plus years that I've worked on the river. And I said, unfortunately, because the finishing of the last cargo barge, what was running the river, Swinderby, he decided to retire, unfortunately. It'd be nice to see what happened to him. Yeah, Pete Bailey. Yeah, he was a smashing guy. Nice guy to talk to, and if you as long as you told him what your plans were, he would do his best, utmost best to help you out, even if it meant keeping his men back a half an hour if he was got stuck somewhere. There was on a time scale where there's so many hours before and after our water, but if he knew that he was going to be a bit stuck for time, he would ask the lads and they would squeeze a bit extra out for you. That said, in the old days, you wouldn't have got that. Yeah, that said, Pete was top man. There was always a crew at Northbridge at the time, which you could guarantee, whatever time it was, day or night, you come to that bridge, they was never ready. You always had to give him a bump because he couldn't really get ashore at Northbridge, so you used to bump the wall to make things rattle. Which sometimes have come out not very happy like, but obviously when you've got a job to do, you want to be away. Pete Curry, we'd gone to a meeting about the river. Basically, that was one of my stand-up points, that the bridges are in better service now than they've ever been when they had, every bridge was manned by 3 men. They've got 2 sets of bridgemen now, and they go from bridge to bridge as you're going up and down the river, and you can't knock the service at all. I mean, at one time when I started, they'll be lifting Drapole Bridge, and you could be coming through Stone Fair Bridge at the same time. When the town had more bridges working, like, but I mean that could still happen, but because of the lack of bridges such as Scott Street not and Chapman Street not in service for road traffic now, I suppose they probably only want to open one bridge at a time if they can get away with it. Yeah, Between Bridges was a place we used to moor many years ago when Dave Cook used to own Great Union Street dry dock. It was a good place to moor, and also kept us busy in that area because the shipyard at Yorkshire dry dock, which when we started with Tugs, we used to launch the new ships off Lamb Street and then fetch them through north into the central dry dock, which is going to be where the Corsair's going. So I suppose the Between Bridges, as it's known, is still going to be a hot spot. My belief is, and that's how I fetch the kids up, being appreciated to people, it costs nothing. Yeah. Like manners cost nothing. Absolutely. I'm always a big believer, if you treat people how you want treated, life's a lot better, isn't it?